Nhớ rằng tờ nó của luôn bê hùa máy mùa lì, của nhớ ít project manager nhớ cho họ lúc công hậu hùa WUCMAA, của cho họ lựa như là kia cho cái cỡ thế cái bao thế cái chỉnh cho họ tay mình ở user share là suicide awareness and prevention.
Nhớ rằng tờ nó của luôn bê hùa long xong, của lo những họ lựa cho lúc công hậu WUCMAA thế, của cho họ lựa hùa prevention project assistant, của yêu tụ lòng là yêu tụ ba thơ thiên đồ mai mùa kia người ta họ lựa.
Trong share ở nơi nó nhớ trong mùa kỳ TV, trên công tên cho bé lúc công hậu WUCMAA, khi lúc sát thia thật cho họ tay mình ở user share, nhớ cho họ bé lúc dễ trong mong. Nếu nhớ ý ở mỗi share chấp lời thọ bé mỗi ít lưu tu chùa tàu cho lời cho share, dù ở lý gia bé thế lý chỉnh tàu cả lần thọ bé nhớ. Thao câu chùa ở bé yêu chủ tàu ua do lo thả con cá share cho họ tay mình nó, hay tiền do vì lý gia ý lên ý tu từ thế lý mua cho kẻ xã cho họ yêu cho lời cho share. Nếu nó bé cho tàu ở từ phong yêu tôi cùng bé nhớ trong nếu nó, lời cũng mới kể cho chuột cho họ tay mình nữa nó. Lời yêu khi cho lời ra nên theo họ tay mình là mua lý gia. She bé bao cởi tàu kinh nhà ở là chơi tàu bé tàu kinh, có bên gà xia theo bao giờ thọ bé mỗi khó tay mình ở trong này nó.
Tổng long ta lỡ bé mà ti đã có là thả cho hai tia olija, tay mình nó họ chịu xì. Dù olija bé thế lịch chèn tàu thiết chơi xia tàu tụ neng hoặc tàu ta cái chết xia. Thời gian neng tận tay nó của bé long, do lòng đời ít tu mùa hoặc tàu mùa cái xa cho nữ cho xia. Do linh đời bên ba xia long say xia nữ ra neng nó họ dùng từ mua lija. Thiết tại xin nó nè nữ họ nhỏ lija lỡ.
Hi, my name is Ping, and I'm on the show as a suicide survivor, and I'm choosing to lift my mask to tell the story. I guess I grew up always listening to my family because as Hmong traditions, we have to respect our elders. And I guess I let that really take over me, where if I disappointed any of my family members, I felt like I wasn't worthy of their love or anything like that. It was just a lot of pressure. I had to grow up at a really young age, as most Hmong girls do. Take care of our younger siblings, our niece and nephews, learn how to cook and everything. And that I didn't mind, but now that I'm a little older, I felt like I got my childhood taken away from me. I guess to start off, what triggered it was I had found out that this was during COVID, the whole entire pandemic when everything started. I had found out that one of my really good friends had passed from COVID. We had I guess the week before that, we had made plans because her birthday was around the same week. We had made plans saying oh, we were all gonna hang out, let's hang out because we're celebrating our birthdays together. A few days later, I got a call from her brother saying that she had passed away and that he was really upset. Of course, his sister passed away, but it's just that she didn't tell me that she was gonna, go, and then I had to hear it from her brother. And I guess, I just felt numb, I felt like I couldn't hear anything. I was just shocked, I was really just shocked. It was like a fever dream for me, it didn't feel real, I was just this can't be real, we just made plans, why didn't she tell me, why wasn't I informed that she was gonna die in a few days? And then at the moment I felt like I was just numb. A few days passed by and I'm just in my room. It's the night before my birthday, and I feel like my world was just taken away from me because she was a really important person in my life. She was always there for me when I needed her. And then when she needed me the most, I wasn't there for her. So I felt like it was my fault that I wasn't there to talk to her, to listen to her. And so I decided if she wasn't in the world, why can't I go with her? So I decided, I grabbed some pills in my room, and then I just downed it all that night. I downed all of the pills. And I sent all my friends a goodbye message, saying I appreciate them, I love them, and I hope that they continue to live. And then I went to sleep. I'm getting thousands of calls. I'm getting so many text messages from all my friends, my online friends too. I didn't even know how they got that information. My sister calls me and she's are you okay? What's happening? I just got a message from your friends. And I just start crying when she called me, because I hadn't had someone tell me, reach out for me. So the moment she asked if I was okay, that's when I started crying. I didn't know what to say. I felt like really ashamed that for some reason that I tried to do this. And still to this day, I still think about it. Like, I feel like people tend to shame suicide survivors saying, oh, you're so stupid for that. But it's just, no, it was just a cry for help. And I guess a few days after that, I was pretty just numb. Like, I didn't really eat much. I didn't shower. I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't wash my hair or anything like that. And I guess it's still to this day, I'm still like trying to heal from it and trying to, I guess, get over it. But obviously we can't with the death of someone that was very close to us. But yeah, that was one of the biggest thing that traumatized me a lot. I did get professional help, and not necessarily shaman cultural help, but I was introduced to spirituality. It's a form of healing, and there's this thing called shadow work, and it sounds scary, but it's really just healing your inner child. And ever since I learned, how to do that, got more into spirituality, I was able to forgive myself and learn that, it wasn't my fault, it wasn't anyone's fault that she had passed. And I'm getting there where I'm learning how to be able to forgive myself and understand that how she died, it had nothing to do with me, and I did my best to be there for her. And it's still hard to accept that too, because it's easier said than done. But I know trauma can cause a lot of things, and it can greatly affect someone and how their daily life is. I guess just have patience with the people who have dealt with it, because then it lets us know that you care, that we are cared about and that we are heard. There are people out there that will listen to you and will understand you. And yeah, I don't know what the right words to say, because you can't just say, oh, just keep living, because then you end up living for other people and then you never end up living for yourself. So I guess what I would say is to find a reason to live for yourself, not for other people.
我找到多年路，我打了呢，我年轻到了边，你像那年到北学梦天，如果到海面只做海地，可对面我到那个啥做那路人做些，因为要你每度朋友我到大是那位，都讲么个做呢，有哩呢弄到家咁弄打来个好啥哩假事。
กูสาแต่从来做ตู那样ยิ่งมัวเกตูเชียแต่เกยเชียถอเลยต่อปลายตัวนึงยอดต่อหลุนึงเจกูสาแต่从来ยอแต่ตรงจีแต่อยากจงเลยนอเลยอยู่เอาตัวเลยนอชีก้าปุจิจรเทียจีสาวราจีเจเจียนเตมูแต่อยู่มัวอีเซลยิ่งอยู่ติดตัวตะก้าหลอกเทียอยู่สาเพตัวเลยตัวเข่งถอจงเลยนอเลยก็อยู่จุดตัวมูฐานเขาก็เจนึงเราอยากก็จะพุ่งอยู่รอชีมุนจีคือขมอ
giờ cô lấy bảo trong này có hai thia thầu YouTube kênh bảo hai thia YouTube chỉ trong đó YouTube kênh này là chỉ tao muốn chơi cái bá chỉ ta là xíu cho đi tu này luôn hai ta lo nói giờ hai thia mua ít tu phong như mua ít cái啥chỉ trong này đó là YouTube kênh chỉ tao xin để bá support lại cho sự hậu trong này nó总之nó bé cũng muốn phong đồ cho ít tu viện giàu cũng mua ít cho nên hình thia bé cũng nói sẽ nữa ra họ sẽ trả lý trả.
Hi, my name is Ngao Su, and I'm taking part in the Behind the Mask project today. I am a survivor of suicide, and I choose to tell my story today. I am the eldest of 6 children. Growing up, I had a lot of expectations. Out of all my siblings and I went to a suburban school, so I wasn't familiar with the Hmong community. And because of that, I struggled a lot with choosing between following the Hmong traditions or attending to my friends with the American lifestyle. And because of that, I struggled a lot with my relationship with my parents. In particular, I was raised by my grandma. My parents had me fairly young, so my dad worked, my mom was in school, and my grandma took care of me. And it wasn't until my grandma passed away when I was 6 years old where I obviously was around my parents more, and it was very hard. I used to always be told that I was very spoiled by my grandmother. For that reason, my mother was very harsh with me. She felt as though I needed to be disciplined differently compared to my siblings. And for that reason, out of all the relationships in my family, I struggled the most with my relationship with my mother. So growing up, it was, we always bickered because we're so similar. We're both very headstrong. We're both very stubborn. And so we obviously butt heads a lot. And for that matter, we would argue often. And it wasn't like arguments that were worth, I guess, fighting about or arguing about. It was the very little things. And it just made us grow apart when I was a child. And specifically, I had a really bad eczema. And my mom would always use that against me. She told me that out of all my siblings and I was the ugliest. And my parents used to be very embarrassed to bring me around family gatherings. Especially in the summer, I would wear long sleeves to cover up my eczema. And on top of the fact that my mom and I already struggled with our relationship, having eczema gave her more reason to, in a way, it felt like she despised me. And so that's why my childhood was very hard growing up. It was March 28th, 2017. I want to say it was a little before my family and I, we were all getting ready to go to bed. And I remember I was in my bedroom. My mom is someone who's very particular, and she, in a way, was very quick to get angry. So on this night, she had just finished going to the bathroom, and she had noticed that there were strands of hairs on the ground. And she had came into the hallway, and my bedroom is in that hallway, and then she started exclaiming and yelling about why were there strands of hair on the bathroom floor. And then she specifically said, "It's Sue, it's always her." And immediately, because I knew it wasn't my hair that was in the bathroom, I opened the bedroom door and I shouted from behind the door and I told my mom, like, "It's not me." And she immediately just got very raged up, and she started calling me names. She told me that I was lazy. She knows that it's always me because I'm not a cleanly person. And it got really bad to where my dad was in the living room, and my dad told my mom to stop saying those words because my mom doesn't have proof that it's me. And my dad also said that what my mom was saying about me wasn't nice. And then my mom actually said something to my dad. I don't quite remember what she said, but I remember it was very mean, and my dad didn't say anything. And then in that moment, I came out of my bedroom and I told my mom, like, "Why do you always blame me? Why do you put the blame on me for everything?" And I told her, like, it's just a couple strands of hair. You could easily just wipe it off the floor and just throw it away. And she just went all out, and she continued to call me names, and it got physical. My mom came up to me and she put her hands around my neck. And in our living room, there's a small little window right by the sink. And so through that window, it faces the living room. So my mom had grabbed my head and she started hitting my head against the wall. And at this point, my dad had gone to the bedroom, but they could hear me screaming. I remember my sister was doing the dishes and my mom grabbed the dish sponge through the window and she threw it against me, told me that I was dirty, and just said like every negative word that you can think of in the book. And then that evening, while we were arguing and while she still had her hands on me and she was still like pulling my hair and hitting my head against the wall, she told me that she wished that she didn't have me and she wished that I would just get into a car accident and die. And I remember after she said that, I just immediately felt like I just dropped to my lowest. And eventually my mom took her hands off of me, and my dad came out, and my dad looked at me. He didn't say anything, but I could tell looking at him. He felt so sad he couldn't protect me. Because in that moment, it would look like he was choosing between my mom or his daughter. So my dad went back to the room, and my mom did as well. And after that, I went to my bedroom, and I stayed in my bedroom and I cried. And when I was in the bedroom, I just thought to myself about how I could be born to be my mother's daughter, and how she could wish that she didn't birth me, and how she wished I got into a car accident and would die. And when I was in the room that night, that's when I thought to myself, if my own mother is wishing this for me, then I should, it's probably true. Maybe I should just go. So that evening, I waited a couple hours, and eventually my family went to sleep. When I knew everyone was asleep, I came out of my room and I went into the kitchen. And we have a pantry where there's just like a bunch of like Hmong medicine, like just Western medicine as well. And I remember grabbing 2 bottles of pills, one of them being Tylenol, and I don't quite remember what the other one was. But I poured a handful of each one and I swallowed it. I went back to my room and I went and posted a Facebook status about how I wish I was more for my mom, and that if one day I become her daughter again, I would love to be everything that she ever wanted. Obviously, when posting something on social media like that, your friends are concerned. And so that evening, my phone was getting blown up with text messages, Facebook notifications, Facebook messages, phone calls, and I did not want to talk to anyone in that moment. That day was actually the day before my cousin's birthday, and my cousin was one of the people who called me, and he was one of 3 phone calls that I picked up that night. And I remember telling him what happened, and he just told me that, you're stronger than that. You're stronger than what your mom says, and so don't take your own life, because there's so much more to look forward to in the future. The other 2 phone calls that I picked up, one happened to be from a sister in Christ, and she sat on the phone with me, and she just prayed for me. She wanted me to know how worthy I was and how much I deserved to be in this world just as much as anyone else. And another phone call that I picked up was from a brother in Christ of mine. And he was the one that actually, when he found out what happened, he drove to my house immediately. Because I told him and I told the sister in Christ that I started to feel my body get very fatigued and I felt really exhausted. And it was in that moment where I was actually fearful that I would really pass away. And so when my brother in Christ came to our house, I came out of the house. I remember I was stumbling and I came into his car, and I remember the drive to the hospital would normally be 15 minutes from my house, and we got there probably under 10 minutes. He was speeding through the cross lights and everything. And while I was in the car with him, I was on the phone with my sister in Christ, and she just kept talking to me. She wanted me to stay awake because in that moment, the 3 of us knew that if I closed my eyes, there was a good chance I wasn't going to wake up. And so whenever I felt like I was dozing off in the car, he would nudge me and tell me to stay up. You know, there's more to life, and just stay up. And I remember he pulled up into the emergency room, and he immediately went by the receptionist's desk and told them that someone had just attempted suicide. And I remember all these doctors and nurses came out, put me in a wheelchair, and I was wheeled to the room. And then it was in the room where the doctors asked me why. And I had a nurse with me at all times, because in the hospital setting, when you're someone who's attempted to commit suicide, a nurse is around the clock watching you. And so I remember that evening, a police officer even came and they talked to me. And before I was discharged to go home, and before they gave me medicine to just feel better, the doctor and the police officer asked me if I felt safe to go home. And although I didn't feel safe, I lied, because in that moment, I just wanted to go home and I didn't want to be in a hospital anymore. So after my attempt, I did not really reach out for help, especially professional help. And that was because when I was in high school, I had built a relationship with a social worker, and she knew what was going on, and she saw my pain, and she had suggested for me to, maybe we could have my mom come in, and she could sit with the both of us and try to understand more of our relationship. And so we set up an appointment with my social worker, and it was very hard to get my mom in. She did not really want to, but eventually she came around. And I remember in that meeting, it was just my mom talking nonstop. She basically mocked me as I was talking to my social worker. And I remember I was crying so much that my mom told me that, why am I even crying? Like, if anyone should be crying, it should be my mom, because I put her through more pain than she ever put me through. And there was more that went into the conversation, but it just got to a really bad extent that the school social worker told my mom to just stop talking. Because at this point, it was validated to the social worker that no matter who talked to my mom, and no matter how many people would try to make my mom comprehend the situation, the severity of the situation, my mom would not budge, and she was not going to listen. And so after my suicide attempt, I chose to not seek professional help for that reason, because I was just so fearful of not getting the help that I wanted. And I was fearful of my mom finding out and seeing what she would say. As I am a Christian, I came around church more. And I was reminded by my youth members, along with the elders, and they all told me that they all heard what happened, and they all came and hugged me, and they comforted me. And through their words, it's where I found strength to just be here today. Their prayers and their encouragement, and just knowing that they loved me and they cared about me. Since my attempt, I'm very happy to say that my relationship with my family is a lot better, specifically with my mom and my dad. And I feel like my relationship with my mom has improved the most, obviously. She is like my best friend now, which is something that I never thought would happen. But it took so many years for us to be where we are today. I think what drew us closer was a few years ago, my aunt passed away, my mom's sister. And out of all my mom's children, I was the one from Wisconsin who flew to be with my mom when it was closer to the funeral time. And that week that I spent with just my mom, and I had my sister there too, but it was mainly my mom and I together. But I was able to comfort her, and I think being able to comfort her through that pain made her see that, you know, I wasn't what she always thought I was. I wasn't this lazy daughter. I wasn't this careless daughter. But I was a daughter who cared about her, a daughter who loves her, and would be there for her no matter what. My mom and I, since that moment, we've grown to be very close. Every now and then, if I'm bored, I ask her if she wants to go do something with me, and we go. And in terms of the rest of my family and I, we're fairly close. We're all well. And at that time, my dad and I, we were not very close. But I can definitely say that through the years, my dad and I are a lot closer now. And I've learned that you know, it's not just me, my family who struggles, but my dad has struggles too. So I was never upset with him in that moment when he couldn't save me from my mom. But in a sense, I just took it as, I know my dad loves me, because if he didn't love me, then we wouldn't be where we are today. You know, after my suicide attempt, one of the biggest things that I learned was I didn't love myself enough. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that I had really bad eczema and I was very insecure. Not only aside from my mother and I fighting constantly, but it was just my insecurities. And so if I had to tell someone who's going through the same things that I once went through, it would definitely be to really find that love from within, and strength from within to love yourself more. And I know it's something that's hard to believe when you are at the lowest point of your life. Like, it's hard to love yourself. And I've been there. And you feel like you'll never get out. But it isn't until you start to learn to love yourself that you start to see, you know, you are stronger than you think. And, you know, in time, you grow stronger emotionally, mentally, and physically. And then one day you look back, you're like, wow, like, I am a lot stronger than I thought. And it was always there. It was just, I never loved myself enough. And so my one piece of advice to anyone out there who's struggling today is just, you know, no matter how hard it seems, no matter how cliche it sounds, love yourself a little more, because no one else will love you as much as yourself.
Ở trong đầu từ viên nhau ta thảo nó, ôn chỉ tao là biển này ra nên bố cho bém long thiên, nếu cũng biển mình chỉ cho hai tiền nên cho cái sĩ cho rong cho nên nhiều này nhỏ, mua cho cái sĩ nhỏ nhỏ lý giá thâu lý giá xứ, giờ thì nó này long có xả lý giá cho nên ra nên.
Cú vợ thế chỉ hai tiền bé cho nhẹ cho gì, ôm long ta lại yêu khơi tóc anh nhẹ nhớ cho hồi ra nên nó thế, thầu mua cái sĩ giá sĩ chè, lò lù phê, bé chỉ cho mua cho là hai cọ cho bé tụi mình nhỏ lú rau nhỏ, chè thâu lên tới lại bé chỉ tao chỉnh pha, tao cái hai cái khoác hè thế cái con đùa, lên tới thâu lên tới lại bé cho mình nhỏ, mình tụi mình nhỏ, thế là chỉ mua cái chỉ thế cái tu sửa.
Chỉ ta là suy ý giáo ở bây giờ anh ở gì chỉ tôi chỉ phát cho giờ tới giờ bỏ xí nhớ để họ lưu vào lưu chế xử lý lúa tiệp bỏ thiết cho nó giờ thọ những mấy tụi mình nhỏ ở mỗi cái cái xã chỉ trong trở lại tôi khi là như chỉ tôi chỉ phát cho tới giờ cho những lý nó như họ lưu chế thế là chỉ bỏ xí cho tụi mình nhỏ
thọ có bỏ ít tụi mình luôn thì thế trong xe ta li dọn trong hai tiệt cho tụi mua ý giả hoặc khi chỉ tao trong hình thức luôn chơi mua tới trong lò xí lò lù mega hu ở lù mask ở bên này nuôi nhỏ giả lý chỉ mua ra chỉ cú vả thế chế hai tiệt thọ bên long cho nên nó ta lỡ bên ở do ta hai tiệt nhưng chỉ mua ý linh từ ở do trong xe ta mua li bên dọn trong hai lù trong xí chơi xe do linh từ xã tàu kế ba cho có cho cứ không mò nhớ trong tới câu lú rõ
chỉ hai lửa hai nên là xì bé cho mong cũng chính tao hai tiền giờ bé sẽ đời cầu tây ok là thả cho khó tới mình nữa nó bây giờ bao cho bé tụt lú tụt chua một chua cái ba thì bây giờ bao hai lúa chơi xia ba đợt lời nhớ tao lúc xia hai của chóng lú ở châu ở đây sẽ đời chính tao là cổng lên nhớ tao nó thế cho và thế chỉ xia hai tiền này sẽ đời dùng trí cho cái nó cá nhớ trong xứ ở châu